So be balanced and be happy. So what are some of the practical guidelines to help us maintain a balanced life? How to make sure that our efforts are not extreme and that we will not be on the wrong path. So the problem seems to be that we make the wrong kind of effort. And this happens when we try to appropriate a higher experience as something to be incorporated into our existing being. So we take something that we aspire to achieve and we're trying to force it into our life. And that's going to create a problem. What we should be doing is to take our aspiration and transform ourselves and not to force fit into our existing being. This effort, which is really just willful exertion, is like a square peg in a round hole. You're trying to force it to fit and something's going to shatter. Something's going to break. We want spiritual liberation, but we are not prepared for it. And we're trying to force it in our lives. We're going to make it very difficult for ourselves. Until enlightenment is attained, there will always be a conflict between appropriating and experiencing, between incorporating and surrendering. It is not good thinking that all effort is willful effort and therefore to be avoided. So it doesn't mean that we should give up. We should not do anything about it. We should give a little bit of nudge to force ourselves to round this peg a little bit, right? Not just hammer into the round hole, but trying to put some effort to round it up a little bit and it'll fit perfectly. So without morality and responsibility, freedom will lead to complacence. And just like living in luxury, by financing it, that will lead to bankruptcy. So spiritual freedom is spiritual richness. Financing our merits, meaning you want to have meditative joy without putting in the effort to make the preparation, you are spiritually financing meditative bliss. It will lead to spiritual bankruptcy. On one side, when we're financing our worldly riches, we are overflowing with financial debt. On the other hand, when we try to have meditative bliss, but we don't have the criteria to earn the meditative bliss, then we are overflowing ourselves with negative emotions. We will feel horrible about it. So the solution to the problem of willfulness is not simply to take things easy, but to know who we are, what we want, and to make the preparation. For example, trying to live a carefree life without first having fulfilled our own obligations. That is an example of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Something is going to break. Or another example is to achieve a state of no thought, meaning they just want to be blank. They don't want to think about anything, no skillfulness, no unskillfulness whatsoever, without first having cultivated right contemplation. You're forcing your aspiration into your existing being. With right contemplation, all your thinking is skillful. So before we even try to stop thinking, we have to practice right contemplation. Of course, no thinking here means no evil, unskillful thinking. Not no thinking like you're a piece of wood. Right? So being unskillful is a state of delusion, not knowing what's wrong, what's right. Well, being skillful is to be able to differentiate between what's wrong and what's right. And being pure is the next level. So they misunderstand the no thought for the impurity. What we're trying to achieve is not a state of no thought, but a state of purity. It goes beyond skillful and unskillful. Another example is they want to have the ability to be alone, to avoid distractions so that they can achieve enlightenment quickly without maturing their social skills and showing loving kindness and care towards others. They want to be seclusive so that they can achieve enlightenment, but they have not shown loving kindness. So that is trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Something is going to break. Meaning that he only learned of the principle, but he didn't know how to apply the principle. So before we can achieve all these things here, we want a carefree life, we want to have meditative bliss, we want to make progress towards enlightenment, we want to achieve this state of no self, then we need to first fulfill our responsibilities, cultivate merits, follow the Eightfold Path, and develop the social skills to interact with people, to serve people, to show loving kindness and care towards other people. When people challenge you, you've been trying to kind to them, you can overcome your ego. You don't lose your motivation to continue on your journey, then you deserve to be on that journey. So trying to fit a square peg in a round hole is going to be very painful. So what do? Why is it so painful? Why is there imbalance in one's life? It may be that the effort you make is not distributed over a broad enough spectrum of interest, so that your spiritual life becomes rather one-sided and you lose your motivation. For example, if you're at work, you think about spirituality, but when you're in spiritual community, you're not dedicated. So you're being imbalanced. So we should do what we need to do. Or we practice mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness doesn't mean that we should be at a temple, but practicing mindfulness is anywhere. When you're at work, you put in 100% of your efforts to complete your work. And when you're in a spiritual community or at home, you do what is necessary to bring happiness to those around you. So it's not that you've been placing too much stress on your effort, but that the effort is not distributed sufficiently widely. When we put in a lot of effort and we're not making progress, we are not applying it right. To resolve this, you can make some provisions in the course of your everyday life. In other words, you schedule your activities accordingly. Right? If you need to meditate, set aside some time to meditate. And during that meditation, you don't want to be disturbed, that's fine. And at other times where you need to work, you need to attend to the needs of your family, then you have time to do that. You fulfill your responsibilities, right? You're not being one-sided, but you're being evenly distributed. So schedule your activities. Don't start any one of them to avoid being off balance. So it takes some skillfulness. But of course, we should be honest with ourselves that we are putting in the right efforts and not giving ourselves excuses. So how do we do that?